Welcome, everybody. My name's Dave Moran. I'm the building director and building official here on behalf of the township. And welcome you to the meeting this morning to introduce the rental ordinance certification process. The rental ordinance was passed by the township board in December. We had both the first and second reading approved, and so we're going to start by having this open forum to answer questions you might have brought today and kind of go through this initial process to get your rental units registered. And that's the first step. We have to register the units, the properties, and that's what we're going to start with. So as far as who needs to register, all property owners that own property that either is rented or is to be rented will need to register those properties. And there are specific details as to how to go about registering. We do have the registration form that we'll present to you. If you just sign in for us real quick, just sign in, and there's a form there you can grab. So a lot of information, you know. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go through the entire ordinance, and if you got a list of your questions, but initially with the ordinance taking effect the first of the year, and there is a couple of typos in some of the paperwork here. It says that the ordinance goes into effect on June 1st. It actually goes into effect January 1st of 2026. And the registration process, as far as the ordinance is stated, everybody's supposed to register within 30 days of the ordinance going into effect. Obviously, that's not reasonable or feasible. So our goal here is to just introduce the process, and I'm going to allow for the registrations to be completed by April 1st of 2026. So give it a little bit of time to submit the required documents of the registration application, and as well as the fees. So is there any questions about that? Is there any concerns about being able to do that by the 1st of April?
Is that the registration fee and the inspection fee?
Not the inspection fees,
Okay,
just the registration.
Right.
And the registration is a one-time event. So once you register this property, it's a one-time registration. Those registrations can be transferable as well. Now, there's a process on how to do that as well down the road, but just keep in mind, this is a one-time registration. It gives the township the opportunity to document what is out there being rented. Obviously, it's obvious to the township that some of our big apartment complexes, the mobile home communities, some of the other locations that are obviously rental areas in the township but there's a lot of single family homes that are being rented as well that we don't know about. So it's critical that we get these registrations in place so we all know what is being rented out there. And also as a benefit to the rental owners as well, because if you have emergency services, we know where those services are going to and for what purpose. So a lot of important requirements that have to be met by doing this registration.
What are you going to do to the people that don't file registration?
Well, this is all new to us as well. So we're hoping that everybody will comply, but those are legal processes that we'll continue to follow. And we don't really know how many single-family homes are being rented or duplexes. We don't have a lot of duplexes in the township, but we are aware of a bunch of single-family homes that are being rented. But again, through this registration process, we'll be able to decipher as best as possible. And then there's ways to track it through the assessor's office.
Right.
Whether there's PREs, property that are registered as single family, or there's different occupancy requirements there that we'll have to track through. But that's that's a little bit down the road. We'll continue to pursue compliance under, as needed, you know, during the course of time. So if you could just register, sign in on the sign-in sheet there, and there's some information there if you want to grab. So once we get registered, it'll be up to the department to start sorting through and scheduling the inspections. So this is going to be a long process. Again, we're just getting started here too. It's going to take literally a couple years to get through all of our rental inspections. So the key for us right now is just answer questions that you might have brought in here today about the process, and then we'll give guidance and confirm with you as rental owners this process of the inspections. So we don't even have a schedule of what apartment complexes or homes that are going to be inspected. We'll start sorting through that as the registration process continues, and then we'll start identifying the different complexes that we'll target, and we'll have to create a list. Now, how that list is going to be created, I don't even know 100%. My thought process is I'm going to take in all these registrations and then kind of look at which complexes or which groups of single-family homes have it registered, and I might put those at the top of the list to help force the registration, because that's the critical aspect of where we're at right now. We need to know, you know, which units in the township are the rental units. People that aren't taking advantage of the opportunity to register and, you know, upfront communication, I'm probably going to be targeting the ones that aren't registering, and we'll target those probably for the inspections first and foremost. That will force them to register, and then we'll go from there. I probably won't have a real good answer for you between now and even, say, 1st of July as to, you know, what the inspection process is going to be and who's in line. Now, once we see the registration numbers and we see that list being compiled, then we'll have a better idea as to where we can target the inspections for the different communities that are, you know, represented. So, you know, hopefully by the second quarter, we'll be able to say, you know, Hidden Lakes, we're gonna, you know, target between, you know, August and November for those units there. So again, that's kind of how we're gonna have to look at it and play it out, you know, and only time will tell. So we don't really have a batting order, so to speak. That's kind of where we're at right now. Once we get those registrations in place, then we'll start creating that batting order. But that's kind of my thought process. Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
At that time, when you notify us that you're ready for the inspection,
Yeah.
we pay the fee for the inspection.
Yeah, we'll give you plenty of notice as to, you know, where our efforts are going to be in the next 30 to 60 days.
Okay.
The ordinance does require us to give you a 30-day notice, so we'll try to add to that, try to keep you involved and informed at least 60 days out. And then the property owners are then responsible to let their tenants know at a minimum 72 hours in advance. So that's part of the ordinance requirements as well. So some of the key elements on what the property owners are required to do and the responsibilities of the landlords. Again, number one is registering the properties. Once we get that in place, then we can start, you know, performing those inspections. And again, we will give you plenty of notice as to when we anticipate providing those services of the inspections. At that time, we'll start documenting and giving it a batting order. The fees can be paid. We'll be sending out invoices for that kind of thing. But I wanted to talk to you more about the responsibilities of the tenants as well, because, you know, we're gonna need to get into those rental units. And, you know, that's gonna be, you know, a learning process for all of us.
Is this a one-time inspection? It doesn't say on here.
It's not a one-time inspection. It's a one-time inspection for the initial inspection process. But if compliance is met, it's a one-time inspection. It's not, registration is one time. Once you register, that's it. You won't have a registration every couple years. But the certification of the rental unit is a biennial or every 2-year process.
So that's when you pay the renewal, the $75. So you're
Correct.
gonna pay that every 2 years and then another $150 every year for a single family home for the inspection?
For the inspections, correct. Now, there's an opportunity in there, if you looked at the ordinance, there's a opportunity for a 3rd year of certification with no expense if there's 4 elements to be compliant on that. So in this inspection process, it's a 2-year certification, but there's an opportunity for that 3rd year being waived if you meet the 4 criteria, which go over real quick with you here. Okay, for the 4 criteria to get the 3rd year at no cost, on page 10 of the ordinance, if there are no more than 4 non-life safety code violations recorded during the initial inspection. All recorded violations are corrected and verified during the first scheduled re-inspection. There are no outstanding fees, fines, or taxes owed to the township on the subject property, and all required building or trade permits for work done within the structure were obtained. So those are the 4 criteria to be compliant for the issuance of a certificate beyond the 2-year cycle. That would be the free 3rd year. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, this ordinance, being that it's new in the township, is probably not going to bode well for this initial cycle of inspections. Well, we're probably going to see a lot of non-compliance, things that aren't up to today's standards of code, things that maybe have been let go for a number of years. You've got to remember that we're way behind the 8 ball as far as enacting this ordinance. I came in to the township and became the building official back in 2020, early 2022. I've been there about 4 years, and I was shocked that we didn't have an ordinance. And even though, if you look at some of the verbiage of the Public Act 230, which is a single state construction code act, essentially states that, you know, we as a township, me specifically as a building official, responsible for all residents and all structures. Well, we haven't had an ordinance that oversees the rental aspects of the properties in this township. So this should have been in place many, many, many years ago, if not decades ago. For whatever reason, the township hasn't enacted it. That's way before my time, but I started that ball rolling, and as soon as, you know, almost immediately after I got here, it was something in my initiatives that I wanted to tackle, because we've got probably 5,000 to 6,000 residents living in structures that have no oversight in terms of safety and compliance. And that was the whole purpose of putting this rental ordinance in place. We've got a lot of residents that we're not overseeing and making sure that they're in habitable structures that are safe, and that's the whole purpose of it. So there is an opportunity to get a third year of rental certificate compliance, but you'll have to meet the 4 criteria to be able to do just that. So, is there any questions at this point?
How
Yes, ma'am.
exactly does this work with mobile homes? I run a mobile home community, and my mobile homes are all homeowners. We're just leasing them the land.
Which is fine. If they're not rented units, then you're not registering those units.
Okay.
Our understanding that some of the mobile home communities that are being represented in the township, there are many rentals in those communities. So if they're rentals, then you'll need to register those.
Okay.
If they're not, they're just considered single-family homes. Okay, good question, thanks.
Are the applications going to be online?
What was the question, I'm sorry?
Are the applications going to be online?
The applications? Yeah, all our, you want to answer?
All the forms will be available on the website. They're not there yet. But yes, they will be able to be completed electronically, and you will be able to email them over. I think we should be able to make payment online as well.
Yeah, we'll work it out where payments can be made and everything. We'll try to make it as easy transition as possible. As far as the registration application, do we have any questions about that? Since this is what we're going to start with. If you look at the application, it does talk about the local agent. If the property owners aren't living within 50 miles as part of the ordinance, if they're not within 50 miles of the property, then we have to register a local agent that is living within that distance. That's a requirement of the ordinance. So if there's a, yes, ma'am. On the application, we'll get that changed because the ordinance is specific to 50 miles. So a registered agent needs to be identified. So if we have a problem with a specific unit, then we need to be able to address that. We can't have a property owner that's living in Florida, it's got an issue with the property in Michigan, and you know, that's the whole purpose of that. So, any questions about the local agent? Is there any questions about how and what information is being provided in the rental inspections? I know we provided and included a checklist in your packet. So, again, this checklist is the things that we'll be looking at. Now, there's a couple different processes that we're going to be going when we come out for the actual inspection of the units. So some are standalone buildings, some are duplex buildings, like at Encore, we've got some duplexes there. We're going to be looking at the building as well as the unit. So if we have an apartment complex where we have an apartment, say an apartment building with say 12 or 16 units, The units themselves will be registered. We're gonna look at those independent of the building itself. But we're also looking at the building because we're looking at the property maintenance aspects of the structure itself. So if we've got 10 or 12 or even 16 units in a building, the units will be looked at separately, but we'll look at the property and the building itself for compliance under the property maintenance code. That also was part of the ordinance adoption. It was in tandem with the rental ordinance adoption because our international property maintenance code, which in our code of ordinances was out of date. So we tied that together with this rental ordinance so that we're updating our international property maintenance code requirements, which was always part of our code of ordinances, but it just was outdated. So now that we've updated that, we've brought it into compliance as far as the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code, and that's what we're working off right now. But the changes to the adoption of that International Property Maintenance Code and that part of the ordinance amendment will continue to perpetually update that code. So, but when we're looking at the buildings out there, we're going to follow that property maintenance code, and that's essentially what this list, this checklist is, has been derived from. So, is there any questions about that? I mean, it's just basic stuff.
Are we gonna require all Independence Township homeowners to do this? Cause this lists some of the homes in our neighborhood wouldn't even meet this on a non-rental list. So it seems like it's kind of an overstretch for rental properties.
We have a code enforcement team that we monitor and try to maintain, but if there's concerns about neighbors' properties in compliance with the property maintenance code, you by all means are able to report that anonymously. You can also make a phone call here to the department and we'll follow up with it.
Not just pass an ordinance to cover everybody,
What's that?
cover everybody.
Well, it's already covered. I mean, everybody,
You don't go into everybody else's
well,
home and check
that
smoke
ordinance
alarms.
has already been in place, you know. But it was only up to, prior to this ordinance amendment, it was only up to date from 2006, which there hasn't been a whole lot of changes even since 2006. But the amendment to the ordinance that was in tandem with the rental ordinance certification, all properties in the township are required to comply with that ordinance. The ordinance is our local code, okay? So that has always been, as far as I don't know how far back it goes, but obviously at least back to 2006, where the property maintenance code is the standard. And if other properties in the township aren't being compliant with that, it's already a requirement of the ordinance. So if it's not, if it's not in compliance, trust me, we're aware of.
You're gonna check every house for a carbon monoxide detector? Or is
Well,
that just rental houses that we're checking?
again, well, there's two sets of codes there too. So a property maintenance code, we can't go into every property and say, were you compliant? Because houses were built in different code cycles. So if a house was built in a code cycle prior to the requirements of carbon monoxide and smoke detectors,
Well, so are some rental properties.
well, but again, now we're registering them into the new ordinance. We have to meet the standards of today's standards of code.
But homestead homes doesn't matter.
Again, if a house was built in a different code cycle, we can't force them to comply. It's the same thing with windows, same thing with compliance on door sizes and things like that. If it was built in a different code cycle, we can't address it.
So in
But
this-
if they got property maintenance code issues that are not being kept up with, say, rotting trim or roofs that are decrepit and not doing its job in terms of protecting the structure, then we can go after them and create a code enforcement on that property. And we do that all the time, every day. We're out there enforcing the property maintenance code.
Yeah, on the outside you do, you're not going inside everyone's homes.
No,
Now you wanna
not
go
generally
inside every
speaking.
rental unit.
No, that's correct.
I mean, how do you know windows in a sleeping area are safe in a homestead home, but in a non-homestead home that's a rental, you're gonna go in and do that?
Well, we don't,
It's on this checklist.
we're not in there, we're not required to go into every house and verify compliance of today's standards of code. If somebody, say, pulls a building permit on their residence, and we, at that point, there's issues with compliance under certain aspects of the code, yes, we need to enforce those. But again, we're out there doing that every day as it is. I'd really like to focus in on what the rental ordinance requires, not
But you're
what.
requiring this, that's what I'm asking.
No,
Like,
no, yes, those, that's the checklist of responsibilities under the rental ordinance,
So
so.
if their stairs in a house aren't compliant in today's code, you're either gonna shut that place down and make them rebuild the stairs? What are you gonna do in that situation? You come to our rental house and the stairs are not compliant because it was built, you know, in 18.
Again, if it was built in a different code cycle, we can't tell you to change it. We can't make you change it.
where does it say that? Under what code?
It's, well, it's under the state residential code. I mean, that's a totally different,
So what is the code cycle then? What is the date?
we're still working under 2015 residential code in the
So
state of
anything that was
Michigan. The
built-
whole state is under the same code, building code. So the Michigan residential code is what we are operating under. And every municipality in the state should be working under that same code.
So if it was built prior to 2015, we don't have to fix the stairs then, for example? If it was built prior to that and they're not code now, we wouldn't have to fix
We
that?
won't be in there looking at your stairway for compliance. Now, if you made application for a building permit to alter something in the structure, and we see that the stairway is a non-compliant set of stairs that is a hazardous condition, then, you know, again, we may address it or not, but that's not what we're
about,
looking
like, this
for.
guardrail that it says? Most homes don't have a guardrail going up the stairs. They
A
don't
handrail, graspable handrail?
Everyone else has that.
If we
So
see
if we
that.
don't have one, we have to put one.
If you are missing a graspable handrail, and under the code, there's more than 4 rises to that set of stairs, you are required to have a graspable handrail. And I don't care if that's prior to 2015, that's just a safety feature that has been in the code cycle for 80 years, as far as I can recall. So yeah, if we see things that are missing that are safety related, we're gonna call that out, because no matter, I mean, if a house was built in 1929, that might be a different story, you know, because guardrails back then, maybe only 29 inches, where today's standards of code is minimum 36. So again, we wouldn't be able to tell you to change that handrail or that guardrail out from 29 inches to 36 inches minimum, because it was built in a different code cycle. So we're not there to, you know, create hardship for those situations, but, you know, we'd probably just take those one at a time and work with it. And we're here to work with our customers. We're not here to make this a more difficult process. You know, we're looking at the very basic safety requirements. A lot of this list has to do with the property maintenance code, because quite frankly, there's properties out there that haven't been kept up for years and years and years. And this is an accountability of rental certification. There's a lot of benefits, not only to the property owners, but to the community, to the tenants. It's all listed. All those benefits are listed right in the ordinance. So we're talking about, you know, a specific house. You have one rental house, or you have multiple houses, all single family. Yeah. So again, we're not going to be there looking at making you change your windows, because they're not egress required window sizes anymore. So a couple of code cycles ago, they started requiring, you know, bedroom windows had to be a certain size. Well, and it couldn't be off the finished floor above 44 inches. You know, those kinds of rules that are into play right now. But if you've got a 3-bedroom ranch and the bedrooms all have windows 50 inches above the floor, we're not going to come in there and tell you got to lower your windows or make bigger window openings to put egress windows in there. That's not what we're intending on doing. We'll be compliant with the requirements of the code. Yes, sir.
That's an example. What if you got 1970s building, and let's say you don't have GFCI outlets in there, is that an example of something that you're gonna want? Is to change out and put GFCI outlets where?
If it's
you just put 'em like the
if
kitchen
it's a
and
life
bathroom?
safety issue, then we will definitely be enforcing that. So whether we're talking about smoke alarms, GFCI devices,
So you do like
missing
something like that,
handrails, yes, we will be looking at life safety equipment that will be required. Yeah, though, that is never grandfathered, so to speak, when it becomes a life safety issue, so. But those will be simple changes that'll need to be made as well, so.
And then who would be doing the work? Are you gonna have conditions on who would be doing that work, like it has to be a licensed electrician to do?
Well, if it's just changing out a device, no. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't require a licensed electrician to do that kind of thing. If you're having to pull new wire, or you're having to add a circuit, then, yeah, there's certain rules in the National Electric Code that requires that type of compliance, under a required permit by a licensed contractor.
What if
Licensed,
like someone's air conditioning isn't working? It's old and don't work.
code doesn't even require air conditioning. Air conditioning is not even required as a
Okay, not
function.
a safety issue.
So we wouldn't even look at air conditioners,
Okay.
whether it's working or not working, because it's, under the code, it's not required to have an air
What
conditioner.
about a heater? Like, you know, like-
Heating, you have to maintain heat, so yes, we will be looking at that, making sure that heating systems are maintaining, the code requires the ability for that equipment to maintain 68 degrees Fahrenheit heat in the unit or in the home. So we will be looking at that. Let's go to that, speaking of heat, so one of the handouts we've put together here is a furnace boiler certification sheet. Since we're coming into this rental ordinance and the rental inspections, obviously all these units are in place right now, but we don't know the age of these furnaces. We don't know the age of the boilers. We don't know the capability of these boilers or furnaces. Some of these units, anybody here representing Hidden Lakes Apartments? Now, I know that Hidden Lakes, they have the equipment right in the unit itself. So there's requirements for not only the ventilation, but we need to understand whether or not those units are functioning as designed and not putting out any carbon monoxide. So this is what we call a certification, a boiler certification, a furnace certification, or in the industry, they just call it heat certification. So there's a standard procedure of information that needs to be provided, and this is the form to do it on. And any contractor of record in the business knows it as a heat certification, and there's certain specific information that we're looking for. Mainly 0 ppms, or 0 parts per million in terms of the carbon monoxide output. The code is very specific. It's up to 0.009 parts per million. I think that's what the code reads. We're always looking at 0. We'd like to see 000. But if we see anything up to 0.009, it's acceptable. Any amount of carbon monoxide in my book is not acceptable, but we don't typically see that. If it's putting out any carbon monoxide, it's well over that 0.009. So it's either 0.000 or it's well beyond the 0.009 allowance. So, but that's what we're looking for. That's going to be part of the requirements as well. So you can get ahead of the game in your rental units and have those heat certifications performed by your licensed contractors. The contractor does have to have a license that allows for that testing. Right? There's a certification under his license or their license that needs to be added and acknowledged. So as long as they have the certification under the mechanical license, I think it's certification G that's required to be able to provide that verification and heat certification test.
So will the township do this under the fees, or this is another fee we're gonna?
That'll be a fee that you will have to pay to provide that certification. And again, that should be done, you know, as a rental owner, that should be done consistently, just for the peace of mind that you've got people in your unit. You should be doing this a minimum every couple of years. There's people I know that's out there, they're doing it every year. But this way, you know, you just get on a service contract, and again, we're behind the 8 ball as a township to get caught up on all of this information to be able to track. But these are standard procedures in every community that needs to be met. So again, we're here to help and kind of guide you through this process. You know, initially it's all a learning process for us as well. So we're going to kind of work together and to make sure that we can be compliant and have safe, habitable spaces for your tenants. Any other questions on this?
So if I have a resident and they moved in, they're a rental, but before they moved in, I had what I call a cleaning check done on my furnace and AC, and it was good to go. I have to get proof of that cleaning check before you go in?
We're going to want to see a copy of that heat certification prior to us doing our inspection. So, and again, it's going to be good for a period of time. So, I mean, if you just got it, let's say you register your property, you get a heat certification, that's going to be good for a cycle of 1 year. So you're good through at least the first 2 years once you get your initial inspection. So we come in there to do inspection and just have a copy of that heat certification and you're good. But that'll be one of the requirements on our checklist.
Well, I mean, if I had one done in August and you guys don't come in until July, I'm not gonna send
Right.
somebody in to do it because I just had it done in August.
Right, if it's good,
And
if it's
then
within 1 year,
Once it's done, it's the resident's responsibility to go and change those filters and everything.
correct? But changing the filters aren't gonna, it's not gonna impact the certification of your equipment, your furnace. That shouldn't be an issue. But if you've got it already done within a year of our inspection, you'll be fine.
And a lot of mine are brand new units that were just, like, the homes were just placed within the past, I think, 2 years. So we didn't, you know, the heats were already there, they're all good, all we had was the AC installed.
And were they installed under the required mechanical permit?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that we're gonna need to make sure that is, you know, it's in there. I mean, if you got a
Yeah,
brand
well,
new
you guys
furnace
have-
and it
you
was
guys have
installed
to come
last
and
year,
inspect it.
then you gotta make sure and that's the other thing with this new ordinance, because we know what's been going on out there for many, many, many years, is a lot of this equipment gets changed out. And it's not being changed out under the required permits, whether it's a mechanical permit or an electrical permit or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and so we need, that's all part of this ordinance, is to make sure that compliance is being met. Not just for rentals, I mean, this is across the board for all homeowners in the township, across the state, across the country. These are not.
I've never had to provide this as a homeowner in the township, ever. As a homestead taxpayer here, I've never had to.
I'm talking about permitting. So equipment that's being replaced, a new furnace, a new water heater. New water heaters, new furnaces get replaced all the time, every day in the township, in rental units. And I'm talking about specific to rental units. Same thing with the homeowner. You know, I changed my water heater 3 years ago. I had to pull a permit for that. We know that that work doesn't always get done under required permits. But in the rental ordinance, this is gonna kinda capture that as well, because we know for years and years and years, I mean, I remember stopping out at apartment complex over on Andersonville Road, and the maintenance guy looked at me, because he had 2 new furnaces sitting in there, he's getting ready to put them in, and he said, I've been doing this for 35 years. The guy's not licensed to do the work. You know, that's against the code, against the law. If you replace equipment in your units, it's gotta be done under required permits. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. But everybody's held to the same standard, whether it's an independent homeowner or a rental owner.
Wait, let me get it clear here. You're saying that to replace like an electric water heater, that now we need a permit to do that?
It's always been in the code. It's always been in the code. Any kind of,
But not for regular homeowners, how are you gonna know if they replace the
that's,
water heater?
that's part of the problem. And it's not just a problem here in Independence Township. Probably 60% of our work related to that type of thing is done without required permits in the township. And that's true with most every community in the United States.
I agree with you there, but now this next step, you're only gonna check those water heaters being replaced in rental units, but not homeowners.
Well, we can't. I mean, logistically, we can't, you know, that's not our
I mean, that's a huge
requirements. The
difference.
code is the standard requirement, and everybody's is to be compliant under that code and those requirements. Again, lots and lots and lots of work being done in the community without those required permits. It's a challenge for every municipality across the country. But those are the standards, those are the requirements, that's the law. So, yeah. Same thing with alterations to the structure. You know, if you're changing things, you know, we have a requirement, you replace the roof on your house if you're renting single-family homes. Or Hidden Lakes, they did a number of buildings and replaced roofs over there in the last couple of years, and we require a building permit for a roof replacement. So, but, you know, we're challenged every day.
Oh, that's been around for a long time.
Well, just since I've been here. Before that, there was no requirement, and there's a lot of municipalities that don't require a roof permit. You know, it's in the code. There's a lot of specifics to replacing roofs as to compliance under the code, so that's why we do it. So anyways, I'm kind of getting off track here a little bit. So again, we're here today. I think the initial goal here today is just really communicate the importance of the initial registration. Again, the ordinance states specifically those registrations have to occur within 30 days of the ordinance adoption or being in effect, which is January 1. I'm going to allow for the registration process to be completed by April 1st. And then we'll start sorting through it from there as far as the inspections and who's going to, or kind of creating the batting order. But I don't have any good answers for you until we see that registration process proceeding down the track a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
The pet vaccination part that you guys are
Oh.
requiring, our leases don't require that, so,
Then it's not a requirement. It's just more information than anything, because if we go into a rental unit and they've got pets, we want to make sure that, you know, the inspections go without a hitch. And
but number 2 in here says have them ready for review. So is that?
It's just in case one of our inspectors may be getting bitten by a dog, and then yes, here's my rabies vaccination. It's more of just a CYA. It's not that we're there to inspect the vaccination records. It's if my inspector gets bitten, here's my record, you're covered, no big deal.
Maybe they should stay outside.
pardon me?
So maybe the inspectors should stay outside then if they're worried about the pets. We've never requested vaccines of a pet.
We'll cross that bridge, you know. We're not trying to make things complicated. We just want to provide as much information as, you know, this is a learning experience for us as well. We don't know what to anticipate on every unit. It's going to be a learning process for all of us. So, you know, again, we're just kind of setting the table of seeing what's going to, you know, come of this. You know, if we've got a rental unit and people have vicious dogs out there, yeah, we're going to be concerned, and we're going to need to, you know, address those individually. But again, we don't anticipate that being a long-term challenge. Let's go to the, oh, okay, it's this side. One other thing about a dryer exhaust, now this isn't gonna apply to every unit, because they're, you know, a lot of apartments aren't gonna have washers and dryers in the specific units. But again, these are kind of one of the things that we're gonna be looking for, making sure that it is gonna be compliant. I see this all the time, and my inspectors see it all the time. Dryers that aren't vented properly, and they're not vented with the right equipment. So that's one of the things that we're gonna be looking for. If you see up in the corner there, this corrugated accordion type plastic vent lines, the vent has to be discharged into a metal duct. Now, they make an accordion type duct out of aluminum. Aluminum being metal, that is compliant with the requirements of code. All too often, we see this accordion type, which has metal ribs, but it's plastic in between those ribs. And that is a fire hazard. So part of the problem in the way those are designed and the way sometimes it's looped and, you know, the lint gets trapped near the opening of the discharge, and if you've got a gas dryer, a lot of times that lint gets ignited and it creates a problem. 15,000 house fires a year due to this type of product alone. And I can't even tell you the number of people that die every year because of this product. They shouldn't even be able to sell it. But if you go to Menards or Home Depot or Lowe's, it's sitting right in the rack right next to the compliance stuff. So why it's sold, somebody else has to answer that question. I don't know. But again, this is just an idea of this communication of what we're looking for in terms of safety and regulations related to that. So any questions about that? Okay, well, I'll just introduce you to Kate Conzel. She's our building department manager, and deputy official Chad Hine. They're going to be integral in our process and procedures of getting things rolling here with this new rental ordinance certification process. Again, this is a learning curve for all of us. We hope that you can take the initiative to make things happen, to be ready for your inspections. And again, the first thing we need to do is just register the properties, and then we'll go from there. We will communicate as best as we can, as far out as we can, as to who's going to be targeted initially for the inspection process. So again, this is going to be a 2-year cycle for us to be able to get through. We've probably got at least 2,400 apartment rentals in the township, probably another 3 to 4, even 300 to 400 that we know of or are pretty much aware of in terms of single families and duplexes. So it could be more than that, but again, we're just in the early stages of identification of these single family and duplex rentals. The apartments and single family apartment homes over at Man Road in Clintonville, Encore, I mean, obviously we know of those, and those will be easy to sort through and register and then schedule for inspections. So, any other questions? We will be holding more than just this initial town hall meeting. We'll probably have another 1 or 2 at least between now and in the second quarter of this year. But subsequent to that, we'll start scheduling things as soon as possible, and we're hoping to start doing rental inspections by probably mid to late April. And that's kind of why I'm trying to target the registrations to be completed and submitted to the township by the 1st of April. So, any questions?
You're saying April, but this paper says June 1st.
Again, I apologize. There was something I stated earlier, I think, before you got here, that in a couple places that specific to, and that was my fault. I communicated that incorrectly, but it is, the ordinance went into effect January 1st, 2026. We're going to start doing our inspections as soon as possible after the registration deadline of April 1st. So the ordinance was specific that it was, the registrations were to occur within 30 days of it being.
Well, I mean, if the ordinance took effect January first, don't you think you should have done something before January 28th to let all of us know this?
Well, this is why we're extending the registrations to at least April 1st. Because it wasn't reasonable to be able to communicate to you today that it's now due in 2 days. But the ordinances, again, you know, those are our local codes, and that information was presented in a public forum. It was posted in the paper. It was compliant with all the requirements of public notice and communication, and it was in the paper twice. So
What paper? I'm not from this area. I drive in every day from Flint. So what paper was it put in so that I can see about
the
getting that?
Clarkson News, I've got a copy of it here for you too. I'll be more than happy to make you a copy.
Well, no, I mean, that way I can see about getting the Clarkson News delivered so that, you know, we're aware of these things that are happening.
Public notice was compliant on the new ordinance. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I came in late, you probably maybe have already answered this. So we have to register by April 1st, is that what you're saying?
April 1st,
Okay, and then when do you anticipate the inspections to begin?
probably by the end of that month.
By the end of April? We'll
Yeah.
get scheduled, or you'll
Yeah,
start scheduling?
we'll schedule it.
I assume
We
you
haven't
have a lot
created,
of apartments, so you will be scheduling from that point on?
yeah, we're gonna continue hitting it. Our goal is to do 1,200 this year and at least 1,200 next year.
Okay, do you have do you have an order or?
We don't have the batting order as of yet. I'll look at the registrations, once those all come in, and so early in April, I'll create a batting order, and then we'll communicate it at least 60 days out. The ordinance requires us to communicate within 30, a minimum of 30 days out. But we'll
So
do
if
our
you
best
were
to,
due April 1st, you would have to communicate, if you were gonna start by April 30th, you would have to communicate with us. April
yeah, that's
1st.
correct.
So, I imagine then you do have to give us 30-day notice.
Yeah, but I'm gonna get registrations in before April 1st, so we may be able to start inspections within the month of April,
Okay, all right, that's, so we can be prepared, thank you.
okay? Any other questions?
The heat inspection here says 5 years, good for 5 years. Did I hear you saying every year we need to do it?
No, every 2 years. The certification is good for a 2-year cycle. And again, the opportunity for a third year at no additional cost if you comply with those 4 items as listed on page 10 of the
So it says
ordinance.
5
Page 10 of the
years.
ordinance.
So that's not correct.
Pardon me?
It does say
It says 5 years in the checklist.
I'm reading off the ordinance, so if there's a mistake on our handout, then we'll get that corrected. Is that on the registration?
No, it's on the
On the
checklist.
checklist. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire and safety,
Yeah.
clean.
No. Okay, my apologies, we'll get that corrected. I'm reading off the ordinance.
The law is 2 years, right, the state law is 2 years.
Pardon me?
I think the state law is 2 years, so,
It's a 2-year cycle.
yep, it's a state law.
We're offering a third year at no additional cost if compliance is met under the requirements of the ordinance. There's a list of 4 items that need to be complied with to be able to get that third year certification.
What are those 4 things?
I'm
There are
sorry.
4 things that we have to meet to get that third year?
Yes, if you look at the actual ordinance on page 10, there's 4 items that you need to comply with to get that, third year of certification with no additional cost.
I don't have a page 10.
Well, it's in the ordinance itself.
Oh, well, can you tell me what those 4 things are?
I read that earlier, but real quick, there are no more than 4 non-life safety code violations recorded during the initial inspections. All recorded code violations are corrected and verified during the first scheduled re-inspection. Number 3, there are no outstanding fees, fines, or taxes owed to the township on the subject property. And number 4, all required building trade permits for work done within the structure were obtained.
Thank you.
How are you going to communicate? Let's say we have everything okay, and we have the 3 years. Are you going to let us know?
We will issue a rental certificate.
Okay.
Yep, that'll be part of our documentation. And we work on the BSNA system, which is a state authorized record retention system. A lot of municipalities work on BSNA. So BSNA is a public record. You can go and set up your own account for BSNA, and register in the township here. You can look at everything we do is a public record. Every keystroke, every bit of information on the inspections themselves. You can track everything. Once a certificate is issued, it'll be recorded in BSNA on that specific address for that specific unit. And again, everything is a public record that we do.
Are
Okay?
you planning to send reminder, like for example, for homeowners, you send like, hey, your water test is almost done this year. Are you planning to send it, or is on the?
Inspection reminders.
We will be sending out inspection reminders, but it is it's the responsibility of the owners to be compliant under the ordinance. It's not a requirement of the township to make you aware of those requirements ongoing, but we will be sending out notices. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm at an apartment complex. Is this like 2 to 3 year certification? Is this per unit? Could I end up with some units that are every 2 years and some units that are every 3?
I would suspect that that would be very norm,
Okay.
very much the norm.
That'd probably be easier on you guys, honestly.
Yeah.
We don't have so much at the same time, but, okay, that's all.
But, again, it's our goal to help be part of the solution and allow for that third year to be
I
in
mean,
play.
We already look at almost all this.
We'd rather not have to be there every 2 years. We'd like to be on a 3-year cycle. I mean, the key is making your tenants' homes safe and
Yeah,
and
like,
habitable.
We're already doing
I'm-
pretty much all of this, but we're a new build, so.
Right, right. You guys are in much better shape. But, I mean, this is a long time coming. This isn't something that, the township just kind of created. The compliance under the code, it's been in place for decades. I mean, again, I don't want to get into splitting hairs over why we're now just addressing it in 2026 in the Charter Township of Independence. Kind of irrelevant. The fact is, we need to be good stewards of the residents of this township. And being property owners, you're ultimately liable for that safety and habitability of those units. So we're here to help achieve that and allow for you to sleep easier at night, not worrying about whether your furnace is spitting out carbon monoxide, or you've got a homeowner that doesn't have a graspable handrail going down a stairwell may trip and fall. I mean, you'll be the first one in court, and you're going to lose in 2 seconds flat because you don't have a graspable handrail. I mean, it's just simple stuff like that, and we see it all the time. But we want to be part of the solution. As a building official, I'm responsible for all residents in all structures, and so that's how we kind of look at it, and we want to be part of the solution. We want everybody to be able to, as far as our tenants, we want everybody to feel, I get them coming to the counter all the time, that they got issues and concerns, and I can't address them because we didn't have a rental ordinance. So, again, this is all going to be a very positive, outcome through this process. But it's going to be a drawn-out process. So, certainly appreciate everybody coming today. If you all have some other questions, I'll hang around a little bit and be more than happy to discuss those with you. And again, we're going to have other town hall meetings and try to bring people in the fold and answer questions. In between those meetings, by all means, you come to the counter, you can call us. Any one of us would be able to help you out. And again, we appreciate your time coming today.